Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to This Week in D&D, where I break down the news surrounding Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and the tabletop RPG industry. We've got some more stuff to talk about for our, I guess this is the sophomore episode, right, of our new live show. First of all, this happened, I think, just after I did last week's live stream, in fact, which was Jeremy Crawford is also leaving Wizards of the Coast. This just hit, like, I think maybe mere days after Chris Perkins's big announcement. So we can now double up on all our conspiracy theories, but really it's probably just a timing thing. And in fact, the Screen Rant article, which is, I think, where who first broke this news, just reiterated the fact that it's just the timing of having the 2024 editions roll out, and obviously Perkins and Crawford were both like the faces of, I mean, really for 5th edition for the longest time, and then but especially for this new 2024 edition, the 5.5 version of 5th edition, that they have been instrumental behind it. I believe was Crawford, I think, the player's handbook, and Perkins was the Dungeon Master's Guide, and maybe Monster Manual. I forget what. I think Monster Manual was probably a just collaborative thing in terms of like the lead designer and everything. But now that all of that has been published and is out there, we just got the Monster Manual, like 6 or 8 weeks ago or something from here. They are leaving, which is, I don't know what that means, honestly, for the future of Wizards of the Coast, for the future of Dungeons and Dragons, other than the fact that these two have been inarguably the faces, the primary faces and personalities behind Dungeons and Dragons for years. Obviously, there's been other folks who have been involved, but in terms of like the video work and how much they're involved in the community and just everything that's been D&D for the last couple years, positive for the most part, I think, has been because of these two dudes. The Screen Rant article does have an interview with somebody from Wizards of the Coast, VP of Franchise and Product, Jess Lanslow. Both of them have been working on Dungeons & Dragons for a very long time, Lanslow said. It's been a point of discussion for some time and something that we've been training up everyone for. Hey, everybody, we're losing 2 of our primary leads, and we're not going to be hiring on for their positions, so all of you're gonna have to take on more work, and we're not gonna pay you any more for that. Is my cynical corpo translation to that. They feel really good about the teams they have in place and the legacy that they're passing on. Yeah, I don't want to burn any bridges. Departure makes a massive shift for Dungeons & Dragons 2, where the primary shepherd is non-quoted of the game for over a decade, and where the primary faces for the game in various videos. I just said that, right? Discussing new products and rules changes in official marketing videos. Yeah. So at the very least, it's going to be just a shift in the personality and marketing that we're going to get. I feel like Crawford was the less beloved compared to Perkins. I think Crawford was still a great game designer and really knew a lot about D&D. In fact, I remember in one of the PAXs, I got to sit at a panel that Crawford discussed. Like, I don't know, it was a rule designer or game designer or something. He's a really smart dude, really passionate about D&D, but I know that a lot of his rules stuff was a little more divisive and could even be contradictory in some cases. In fact, during our live games, we would often look up rules, quirks or something, via like Twitter messages or something that Crawford had posted on there. So maybe not quite as beloved as Perkins was, but still a top-tier game designer, I would think, unless the folks have some very strong feelings about it. This is back to quoting Lanslow. They wanted to make sure that the core rule books were really successful, and they were setting up all of the future leads for success. That has happened, and they feel really reassured the folks in place will be able to carry on with the wonderful legacy that they've given us and then bring their own stuff to the table, which they've already been doing. Which, if you remember, during the preview video that I showed during the last This Week in D&D, where they did Dragon Delves, which is called Dragon Delves, not Dungeon Delves. Eric, you fucking moron. I've been trying to correct all of that. Perkins and Crawford were not in that video at all, obviously, so it's already starting, and it's gonna be a change. Who will replace Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins on the D&D team? No direct placements were named, but existing team members will have a bigger space at the table. I feel like I should put that in quotes. As I mentioned, James Wyatt and Wes Schneider, principal designers, have been part of the D&D team for years. Oh, there's the quote. Bigger place at the table. Other designers, including Justice Armand, who started off, I believe, making adventures on the DM's Guild, as I recall. I think I remember interacting with him in the past, years ago. And then I think he joined another third-party developer before actually signing on with Wizards of the Coast. It's been really cool to watch his career bloom like that. The team is losing a combined 40-plus years of experience with Perkins and Crawford. Man, that has got to hurt from a corporation standpoint. Jeez, 40 years of experience. Outside of the new core rulebooks, other designers have been listed as the project lead for all of D&D's releases over the past 2 years. The D&D team is shifting to match existing team members' strengths. Right now, we have folks in principal and lead roles are escalated to take on more responsibility. We're looking at the team and our... Yeah, but are you actually going to, like, give them a new position, which comes with a new pay raise? Am I being too cynical about corporate late-stage capitalism? Because I don't fucking trust it. We're looking at the team and our needs and to figure out how to really construct the team in a way where we can work to everyone's strengths. Will the D&D roadmap be affected by Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford's departure? Again, I'm looking at the Screen Rant article about Jeremy Crawford. I believe they're the ones that broke the news, and they've got a really good article here. I should link to this in the show notes. Let's see. Team discussed a 5-year plan for future releases. The roadmap will not be impacted by any way of these changes. The roadmap remains the same. We've already set up the leads for all these future projects. I mean, I would hope so. If this was a long time coming and they were all discussing, like, hey, 2024 is going to be our final thing, then the team would have to, like, okay, spin up some other folks for being leads on other projects. Chris and Jeremy don't need any substitutes at this moment because they're both in very high-level road mapping roles and capacities for the last year. Okay. They've been helping us gather that strategy, set it together, help us figure out the correct casting for everyone on particular effort. So this has been all... So you're saying they've been thinking about retiring for a year? Feel really good about it, and we're really happy we're able to contribute to setting up that plan for the future. Okay. Leslie wanted to express her appreciation for all that Crawford and Perkins have brought to Dungeons & Dragons. I joined the team a little over a year ago, and working with Jeremy and Chris have been one of the privileges of my career. They are fantastic people, along with being just fantastic creatives. I've learned so much from them, and that goes the same for the rest of the team. They've been so generous, sharing their decades of knowledge with us so that we can move forward in this moment, really kind of let other people step forward and bring their cool, new, weird ideas to the table as well. So that's going to be a big change. I think it'll be interesting to see how this is going. Because I think partly what they're losing, it's one thing to lose the designers, obviously, from that standpoint. But like I said, they were a big part of the personality and the faces of Dungeons and Dragons. So who are going to be the new faces? The people who actually come on and talk to Greg Tito on YouTube and hype up the products and talk about things with all that kind of knowledge and riz, as the kids say. So it'll be that I think that's going to be the bigger hole that's going to be felt. It's weird. As long as I've been doing this, which I've been doing this D&D thing on the channel for, oh gosh, I'll be looking at 10 years, I think. Crawford and Perkins have been there, right? Like they've been such a main part of it. So it's gonna be very weird to not have them as part of the design team, not being able to look up their videos and cite their information. Obviously, I hope they continue to put out stuff related to D&D. It won't be in an official capacity. I don't know what that means for Acquisitions Incorporated, for example, but nothing, I mean, you know, you don't have to be a fucking employee of Wizards of the Coast to obviously, you know, do D&D content. And maybe they want to step back and be like, I don't want to do any of that. Or, I don't know, maybe they'll do their own thing. I just feel like there's enough personality there where they could, for example, spin up their own like YouTube channels or something if they wanted to, just from a hobby standpoint, or be part of still like Ink or something. But I'm gonna miss them. I'm gonna definitely miss those two gentlemen. I think they've done a fantastic job with D&D. We can argue about 5th edition in a lot of ways, but I honestly don't think you can argue about how successful 5th edition has been with Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I don't think D&D has ever been as popular, as fucking mainstream as it is right now. And that's partly due to 5th edition's design philosophy, but partly just because of, the way YouTube and streaming and everything has kind of risen along with that. And Wizards of the Coast, maybe not the best managed company, but has at least not completely shit the bed when it comes to keeping up with that kind of thing. So it's going to be painful to lose some good custodians, I would say. And hopefully the existing team will do a good job of promoting other personalities. So I think that does help a lot with, especially me, who's very cynical about corporations, is when you have these faces, right? When you have these personalities, and you at least have the illusion, if not the authenticity, that there's real people. I mean, there always is real people behind. There's great people working in every corporation at certain levels. But when you put those faces front and center, I think it really, really helps to give that personality and give a face to all these things. And I think that's what they're really going to lose here. So hopefully we can have other people step up there. So tip of the cap, raise the glass to Perkins and Crawford with the end of an era, I think, for sure, as we enter our new era. All right, let's move on to our next big news post, which is all about Baldur's Gate 3, which, gosh, I am so behind. You would think, as somebody who loves video games, loves D&D, loves tactical party RPG video games, that I would be playing so much Baldur's Gate 3 all the time. And I love Larian Studios. I was a big fan of the Divinity Original Sin series. I put 100 hours into both 1 and 2. In fact, I've played over 100 hours of 2. And even further back, where I played, there was another fucking Divinity game where you could, like, transform into a dragon. It was like an Xbox 360 game. Like, I've been playing Larian Studios since before they were popular with Baldur's Gate 3. But for some reason, I have not been able to jump back in after... we did the, you can see on the channel where we played a big, a fun 4-player multiplayer playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, and then we very infamously ran into a nasty bug in Act 3 that we couldn't even continue because one of the players just could not, like, load in and do any of that. So we need to test it again and see if we can jump on, because we got, like, I don't know how far into it, like 50 hours or something into that playthrough. There's probably 20 or 30 some sessions you can watch, so we need to try that back up. And then that really discouraged me into playing my own games of Baldur's Gate 3 for whatever reason, even though I made it 15 or 20 hours in, whatever it was. So I need to play more. But I wanted to cover this news post because they just released the final patch for Baldur's Gate 3, which released, help me out here, in early access in when I feel like it was in early access for years, wasn't it? I know it launched in late 2023, I think, right? Because it wasn't last fall. I think it was a year before that. I think it was early access in like 2020. Like, it was a long time where they refined it for years and years. So many freaking patches. So this final patch, I believe, is only counting, I think, when it actually launched in 1.0, which would have been, I believe, fall of 2023, which... You don't need me to tell you, Baldur's Gate 3 has been an enormous success, almost unprecedented for this kind of, like, hardcore tactical RPG, very, like, late 90s style, which is when Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 released. And has been absolutely amazing, and it still has a shit ton of people playing this game. Tens of thousands of people are still playing Baldur's Gate 3, like, right now. So the final patch... just came out this week, and they even mentions the final. I mean, the final they'll release, like, maintenance level patches, presumably, right? They'll for any kind of hot fixes or things that they need to be compatible for, or bugs that creep up. They'll definitely do that. But this is in terms of a major content patch where they're actually adding things. Which, by the way, Baldur's Gate 3 no fucking paid DLC released. Which, that's how you know they're not ruled by corporate overlords, because there is no way in hell that any other game released by a major studio would launch to this much success and not be churning out paid DLC. That is crazy. Instead, they put out all of these just free patches with all these quality of life improvements and stuff. That's nuts to me. And people would pay. I mean, all of us, I think, would pay money for like DLC that adds like, you know, new. I mean, look at Solasta did that, right? And they're a tiny company, and they released like all their extra classes and subclasses and stuff as paid DLC. And I think that's just, people expect that, and that would be fine. But Larian's like, nah, nah, we're too good for that. Like, geez, it's crazy. So the final patch adds 12 new subclasses, which is a new subclass for every class. Actually, see where it lists them here. I'll go to this one. I think adds it. I love this fucking picture of the meme with the Halson and the bear. So the new subclasses are Bard, College of Glamour, Barbarian, Path of most of these, I believe, are existing in 5e through the various like extra books and stuff. Barbarian, Path of Giants. I think that's actually might be a new one. Cleric, Death Domain. I wonder if that's as broken as is in 5e. Druid, Circle of Stars. Fighter, Arcane Archer. Monk, Way of the Drunken Master. Paladin, Oath of the Crown. Ranger, Swarm Keeper. Rogue, Swashbuckler. Sorcerer, Shadow Magic. Warlock, Hexblade. And Wizard, Blade Singing. A lot of very powerful, cool subclasses, which is nuts. Demnick says Baldur's Gate 3 was originally set to be released in early access in 2020 before being delayed a week to 6th October. Yes. Yeah, so it was originally released in early access in 2020, which I think I played back then, right? I think I played the early access for a couple hours, and then later, and then didn't touch it again for years until it actually launched. And then around the time it launched, I think maybe a month or two later, I think it's when we started our big multiplayer playthrough of it, where we all played our own custom characters. Yeah, last content patch. So lots of subclasses were tied to mini campaigns, and one was tied to a species too. Okay, interesting. I think I've actually purchased some of the Solasta DLCs, but I haven't actually played any of it yet. And I'm looking forward to Solasta 2. I need to check that out. I need to check the demo out. So it includes 12 new subclasses, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they already did a couple of content patches that released a bunch of new subclasses, right? So if I were to jump into Baldur's Gate 3, I would probably see even more than this, because I think they've added more since when I played, which last time we played, I don't even know, I'm embarrassed to say, was probably months and months and months ago, honestly. And I don't know, I should jump back into it. I need to do, what I want to do is continue my playthrough I had, my solo playthrough, and then I want to do a playthrough where like I played as one of the NPC, because that's an option that they have, is that you can just play as one of the tadpoled party members as your protagonist, and that's a way you can actually use technically more of the characters, although I think by playing that character you don't hear their like voice and stuff as much, because it's you actually role-playing the character. So not something I would want to do as a first playthrough, but I think it'd be interesting to do for a secondary playthrough. And then of course everybody says to play the Dark Urge as an amazing playthrough as well, but the problem is it's a 100-hour fucking game. Like, how do you do that much when there's so many games to play? But it would be cool. I need to jump back into Baldur's Gate 3. The patch also adds crossplay, which I didn't realize it didn't have before. I feel like this is such a standard thing that so many games, I mean, I'm glad they're introducing it now, which is crossplay between PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox and Mac, so players can party up no matter which platform they're on. I do feel like this is getting to be more and more standard, which is awesome. I mean, the console wars have basically died out, except for maybe like Nintendo still obviously having only Nintendo games on there, but now with crossplay on everything, like, we can all come together and unify. Photo mode is another thing that's kind of becoming more of a regular standard thing, but also it's one of those things that a lot of developers add after the fact, because you don't really need to launch with a good photo mode, and in fact it becomes like a very common, easy thing to add. Not easy, but easy, appealing thing to where people love having a photo mode, but you don't need it at launch, in other words. So I think this is a good thing to to add later. And in fact, I think that's what the if we scroll down here, that's what these are from, is the new photo mode create. This is the, I'm looking at multiple sources for the patch notes. This is from the actual Steam page. There's some really great photos in here though, showing off what you can do with the photo mode. Because, you know, a good photo mode isn't just like, oh, you hit the pause button and you can like zoom around or something. It's like you can do all these filters, and I don't know if this one has it, but I know some photo modes you can like change like people's poses and facial expressions, maybe even move them around. It becomes like this little set design kind of a thing, depending on how fancy the photo mode gets, which is fun. It almost becomes like a little game in of itself. Just, what is even going on? Everybody's shirtless and dancing. Oh man, that's fantastic. So we've got photo mode, we've got crossplay, we've got 12 new subclasses, also a modding toolkit update, which brings partial level editing and quality of life updates to the official modding toolkit, which is a really cool thing to add for the final patch. Let's see if it, yeah, it's the final major content update for Baldur 3. Patch 8 passes the torch for future additions to the community. To aid them in this endeavor, the official modding toolkit update is launching today, bringing with it quality of life updates, partial level editing for existing items, characters, and triggers, all of which will allow increasingly ambitious projects to be realized. You don't need me to tell you that mods are the reason that so many games remain beloved and played. I mean, it's, look at Skyrim is the #1 example of that, where it's a single player RPG, but because of mods throughout, and because Bethesda keeps releasing Skyrim on everything, every single platform ever, it's become such a continued thing throughout the years and decade plus. By the way, did you hear we're getting an Oblivion remaster? Bethesda will do anything but release Elder Scrolls 6. But that's cool. That's awesome that BG3 has a cool toolkit, and that will allow the fans to keep it going for a while. I don't even think it needed one, because it's just such a great game with so much content for so many years. But now that this, I mean, it will continue on for, gosh, who knows how long. And again, how do you even track it? Do you track it from 2023 when it released at 1.0, or do you track it all the way back to 2020 when it was in early access? Because it's already technically been available for like almost 5 years now, if you go all the way back to that. So that is a pretty cool patch. There is some, let's see, some stuff we can watch about it if we want to, which I will make sure to watch my volume this time. By the way, it confused me at first, but I forgot that Larian actually has 2 different YouTube channels. There's their main Larian Studios channel, but then they have the specific Baldur's Gate 3 channel called Larian Channel from Hell, literally at Larian CFH, which features all the specific Baldur's Gate 3 stuff. And they said they're going to continue doing these weekly. So even though Larian is basically saying, hey, we're no longer going to be working on Baldur's Gate 3, we're going to officially be, in fact, I think they mentioned that somewhere here, don't they? Yeah. Well, work at Larian Studios now shifts onto new projects. The Larian Channel from Hell will ease the wait by starting regular live streams. First will take place tomorrow, Wednesday, 16th April. That was actually yesterday from here, which is what that one video we saw. Additional ones following weekly on Wednesdays at the same time. So they're going to keep doing weekly live streams, offering behind-the-scenes look at Larian and the creation of Baldur's Gate 3 while sharing secrets, introducing the devs that made it to reality. As for what's next, we promise we'll share more on that when we can. So they'll continue doing that kind of fun thing. Any guesses as to what Larian Studios is going to do next, by the way? They basically only do fantasy RPGs. And since like 2014, or before that, I guess, because I believe the first Original Sin released in 2014, so it would have been whenever they first developed it. So over a decade, they've been working specifically on tactical party-based RPGs. Does that mean they want to keep doing that? Do they want to make another Divinity Original Sin, for example? Divinity Original Sin 3? Do they want to work on a completely new IP, but within that same genre? Or do they want to even try to explore a whole new genre? My guess, I don't think they'd want to do Original Sin 3, because they already just did a big fantasy RPG, and I think that would be a little too similar. So if I had to guess, without knowing anything about Larian Studios' new plans, I would probably say that they will stick to doing a RPG maybe, you know what would actually be really cool is if they didn't do fantasy, which might be blasphemous for them because I think they've only done fantasy RPGs. But I would love for them to make a cool sci-fi tactical party RPG, like in the same vein as a Divinity or a Baldur's Gate 3. But give me fucking laser swords and laser guns, laser ships. Lots of lasers mainly. But that'd be pretty interesting. But that's their wheelhouse is purely fantasy RPG. So I don't know anything about what they're doing next. I will presume, I'll definitely presume that it would be an original IP and they don't want to license anything else like they did with Baldur's Gate. Not to say that wasn't a bad experience for them, but I think a lot of companies, once they do that, they're very cognizant about, all right, we need to also be developing our own like stuff and not being beholden to all these other, licenses and things as well. So I could see them doing something original and something probably outside of the Divinity series as well. Which you're going to do that, you might as well maybe not do fantasy. If we want, we can explore maybe one of these videos. Some of these are pretty sure. There's 3 videos for the subclasses. But yeah, I watched part 1, so let's do that one. I'll try to watch my volume. Hopefully it's a little quieter than it was.
Fire up your character creators. Baldur's Gate 3's Patch 8 has a ton of exciting new additions, and maybe most exciting of all is the fact that there's a whole brand new subclass for each of the existing 12 classes in the game. That's Bard, Barbarian, Cleric, Druid, Paladin, Fighter, Monk, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. We'll be taking you through each of those in more detail at a later date, along with insight from
I think the only thing really missing.
But before all that, we wanted to do a really
That's a bummer they never
rundown of
got
each
to.
class and why they might be
Was the
your
Artificer
first choice
class.
to create another new tab. We're doing 4 per video in this series, so let's start with my personal favorite class, the Bard. Drawing inspiration from the Feywild, College of Glamour bards captivate both friend and foe, commanding attention, reverence, and compliance. Fierce in every sense of the word, they can use Mantle of Inspiration to bestow allies with 5 temporary hit points. And if an enemy attacks those allies, they may also be charmed. You could potentially double this up with a Glamour Bard's other hidden talent, Mantle of Majesty, which lets the Bard command charmed enemies to flee, move closer, freeze, drop to the ground, or drop their weapon.
I like the animation. That was like groveling on the ground.
If huge rippling muscles are more your thing, and yeah, I see the vision, maybe try a Path of Giants Barbarian instead. Being able to tap into the
Is this an original one? I mean, it seems kind of like Rune Knight.
These barbarians to throw
because it looks like they can embiggen themselves
over greater distances and deal greater damage by.
But I don't remember specifically a Path of Giants. Am I missing when that got released at some point?
It has pockets, crowd. Enjoy the increased carry capacity that comes from being so darn big and strong. Death Domain Clerics are necromancers who revel in death and decay, boasting an array of necrotic-themed spells and 3 necromantic new cantrips. Aw, you shouldn't have. Our favourite is the powerful Toll the Dead cantrip, in which a dolorous bell signals your enemy's demise and deals damage that scales up if the foe you're targeting has already been hurt and is no longer.
Was Toll the Dead not in the game before?
And just for funsies, we've added the ability to explode nearby corpses for extra damage and...
Wait, they had a Diablo 2's corpse explosion?
The final new subclass for this video is the Circle of Stars Druid. Taking their inspiration from the night sky, these druids draw on the power of starlight to guide their hand and add to their existing wild shape abilities additional forms imbued with the infinite power.
One of the most beloved abilities in the Diablo series,
can access
corpse
starry
explosion.
forms for their power. Constellations that embody a wise dragon, a healing chalice, or a radiant astral archer. Each form is an option to enhance your role as a healer,
Big
fighter,
B's
or
guide
strategist.
to
The
big
archer
boys.
deals radiant
Big B's
damage
guide
with
to big
arrows.
boys.
The chalice restores hit points to you and your
I never
allies,
looked at that one.
helps you deal damage with an added bonus to
So
your
that's why I don't recognize it.
Constitution rolls. And unlike other druid wild shape uses, you'll still be able to access all your other spells in starry
Yep,
form.
druids are
That's
still
it
very
for this
powerful.
initial part of our quick guide to
They're full
choosing your
casters, but
first
also have
Patch 8
awesome wild
subclass.
change abilities.
But even
Wild
if
shape.
one of these tickled your fancy, there are still 8 more to go before you should make your decision, so do check out parts 2 and 3 before you rush back to Faerun.
Oh, okay.
Who are we kidding? You're going to be playing all 12,
Got yeeted
aren't
off
you?
the top.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, so Baldur's Gate 3. Pretty good game, I think, right? I need to play more of it. I really need to play more. It has been an overlooked part of my gaming experience. What about all of you? What are your thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3? Does the new patch excite you? Do you not care at this point? I mean, I think gameplay-wise, I don't know if crossplay, if anybody's like, oh shit, yeah, that's gonna be amazing. I have tempted to purchase Baldur's Gate on PlayStation so that me and the wife can play split screen, because that's how we played Divinity, and it worked really well. But I heard that Baldur's Gate forces you into the split screen. I don't know if this is a limitation of the engine or something, whereas Divinity did a cool thing where if you split up, it split the screen, but if you came together, it merged. They call it like dynamic split screen or something, which is really spiffy, and it looks cool too. And like, it's literally as soon as you come together, it just like the split goes away and you're together on the same screen. But I've heard that, and only certain co-op games even do that. But Baldur's Gate 3, I believe, is just permanent split screen even if you're right together. So that's a little disappointing, but would be easy to play. The problem is Baldur's Gate 3 is, of course, very M-rated, and I have kids. So it's one thing to play it on my PC in my office, and another thing to play it in my living room on a giant TV. It could be a little bit awkward for certain parts. So that's partly what's holding me back, honestly, the parental gaming woes. So M-rated. But I do love that game. Obviously amazing. All right, that is the Baldur's Gate final patch. Let's move on to something I just wanted to highlight real quick, which is the DM's Guild is currently having a sale called the Woods and Wild sale. 30% off, I guess, things that have to do with the Feywilds and forests. If I actually click on it, does that just do the same thing? Yeah, it does. Okay. So that includes like the Feywild Companion is in here, Through the Veil, which had a bunch of adventures in the Feywild, which I believe I reviewed both of these. Feywild Companions from Splinterverse, I think. Yeah, Jimmy Flowers, which is awesome, amazingly thick book. Really good shit there. Wow, I'm just looking at the hottest items under the sale. People really like solo adventures. These are the top ones. Okay, Aventier Games, Wild Beyond the Witchlight Complete DM Bundle. Pretty much every single official campaign I've run, I will purchase the Aventier Games DM Bundle to go with that, and it will include a lot of advice on how to run certain sections, or supplementary encounter ideas, or even some maps for certain things. And I've never regretted any of those purchases, so that's always a good one to have. Okay, Storm King Thunder is involved in this too. I don't know why. In terms of I'm trying to get the theme of the sale here. Yeah, Feywild Companion's really good. Okay, Tomb of Annihilation, I would not consider Woods or Feywild, so I'm not sure where that comes from. But I do think I purchased this one as well. Sean McGovern's Tomb of Annihilation Companion, very good. All right, we've got Dan Kahn's Witchlight Carnival Expanded. I hope all the other ones are in here too. I am a Dan Kahn stan. I fucking love his work so much. It's very similar to how I run my D&D games, which is to take the official 5e stuff and then tweak them and fix them up and clean them up, and this adds a whole bunch of good like content to it. It expands on characters and plot lines. And in fact, there's separate ones, I believe. Yeah, here's one. Hither, Thither, and Yon are all in here, which are the three main sections of the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. And this adds basically a new dungeon or new event thing to each of the areas, which is amazing, because those areas, if I'm thinking all the way back to my Wild Beyond the Witchlight review, I think each one only basically had one real dungeon crawl, and it was kind of like the final one of that area. So I feel like it was otherwise just a bunch of kind of overworld encounters, which to me is fine, but you need to break that up into areas that players can explore themselves, and these add a lot of great content for that. So that is very good to have. Why the fuck is Rides of Vecna in here? What does that have to do with the Feywild? I mean, it's a fucking great book. In fact, we're going to talk about Legacy of Vecna here in a second. I don't know. This sale confuses me now. I'm not sure what all got flagged for Vecna, Eve of Ruin, Tomb of Wayward Souls. From Heroic Maps is in here. Tomb of Annihilation Complete DMs bundle, which again, very, very great. I definitely purchased that one. It is an awesome one to have. All right, well, I'm not sure. There's just a bunch of good shit on this sale. I'm not sure. It's not all Feywild stuff, in other words, which is why it's useful to come here and see that, like, oh, there's actually just a lot of good products on here that I would not consider to be Woods nor Feywilds. But a lot of the stuff that I would absolutely recommend picking up. Tessa Presents, by the way, makes a really good full color maps for any kind of scenario situations you want for official adventures. There's a lot of good shit here on sale in the DMs Guild that I would very much recommend. I would not run the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, by the way, without using Dan Kahn's supplementary adventures. They're that damn good. I want a computer that can play it. Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 does require a bit. In fact, I think I upgraded something on my computer. My computer is a real ship of Theseus, where I built my computer years ago, and then I've been upgrading it, different parts of it piecemeal from there. And I know I had to upgrade my wife's computer to be able to play Baldur's Gate as well, which I was disappointed that we still ran into that bug and she had problems with it, even after I did all that. I want to talk about Legacy of Vecna, which just came out, so I'm kind of toot my own horn a little bit because I just did the sponsored review from Scott, who is also a longtime fan of the channel and a patron of patreon.com/RogueWatson. But legitimately, I love this Doomed Forgotten Realms series. If you haven't heard of it, it's like an apocalyptic version of Faerun, where all of the various storylines, Tyranny of Dragons, Tomb of Annihilation, Storm King's Thunder, all of those happened, and they all, basically all the heroes failed. It like took like the darkest timeline from all of them, and it turns out that Vecna was like the big bad behind all of them, and the Soulmonger from Tomb of Annihilation was actually to bring Vecna back into our world. So there's the Volume 1 is kind of a weird like precursor thing that's okay, frankly. That's like more of a character creation, like introduction to the world. And then it's Volume 2 and 3, which is actually Rise of Vecna and Fall of Vecna, which Rise of Vecna is a 1 to 10 campaign, and then Fall of Vecna is a 10 to 20 campaign that involves going around the whole Forgotten Realms area. When I say Forgotten Realms, I basically mean the Sword Coast. And experiencing all the different like super dystopian versions of everything, and kind of remixing in a cool way all of the official 5e campaign stuff, and tells a complete story and a complete ending to it. So I was like, well, what is this Volume 4 then? Why are we still doing this story if we defeated Vecna at the end of Volume 3? Which, by the way, you can watch my review on the channel, but as a real quick mention, because it did release this week, Legacy of Vecna doesn't actually have Vecna in it at all. Instead, it is a cool follow-up that involves kind of investigating Mordenkainen and what's going on with him. And if you recall, in the official 5e book, Vecna, Eve of Ruin, I'm going to spoil that one slightly for this, so if you don't want to hear a spoiler for Vecna, Eve of Ruin, tune me out for the next 10 seconds. But in Vecna, Eve of Ruin, it turns out that Mordenkainen is a bad guy in disguise, basically, and ends up doing bad things towards the end of that campaign that the party has to realize. So in this one, works as not only a follow-up to its own series, Doomed Forgotten Realms, as a way of following up to like, oh, what is Vecna turns out to have been powering all these obelisks, and you have to go track down this main obelisk. But then it turns out like Mordenkainen has also been corrupted and by this evil force, this serpent creature, which, by the way, does this not look like the cover of like an early 90s RPG? This looks very like wizardry or Might and Magic to me. Not necessarily, I'm not saying that as a detriment or as a compliment. It's just kind of an observation. I thought it was a funny bit of aesthetic. Maybe it's kind of the 3D looking serpent thing here. And the party has to basically uncover what Mordenkainen's corruption is doing and follow him into Planescape setting, which is cool because a lot of the other Doomed Forgotten Realms covers the Sword Coast, covers all the different Forgotten Realms things, covers the Underdark, and then eventually covers even going into the Ravenloft settings and all the different demi-planes. So what's left? Well, the Planescape setting. So the majority of this book is actually a kind of, not necessarily dystopian version of Planescape, but one in which there's like a refugee crisis because the villain is like destroying the multiverse piece by piece, like one what do you call it, dimension at a time. Like, what are the different ones? Help me out here. Arborea, Pandemonium, all those different ones. I can't think of them right now, but there's a whole like wheel, around, and Sigil is the very middle point of that. So Sigil is like experiencing a huge refugee crisis. So there's a really cool moment where they're all like, portaling in. You have to deal with that. I really enjoyed this series, and I thought, interestingly enough, it's actually the easiest one that you can run separately, even though it's not intuitive because it's volume 4 of a series. You're thinking like, oh man, we got to be like well deep into the series. But that's not the case at all. You can run it either as a follow-up to Dune Forgotten Realms, or as a follow-up to Vecna Eve of Ruin in a very cool way. You just have to like literally change a few things, and the book even says like how to do that. Or you can run it as a separate adventure. Now, on the other side of that, you're thinking like, well, wait a minute. If I run it as a follow-up to Eve of Ruin or Fall of Vecna, that means my players start at level 20. And yes, that is how it works. It's an epic level adventure designed to take players from 20th to 25th level. 5e does not support that. So you have to, which this, the publisher group, I believe they're called Quill and Cauldron, do sell another book, which I've also reviewed, called Epic Characters, I believe. Yeah, this one right here, down here. And that one allows you to go from like 20 to 30 or something, which is absolutely nuts. You can adapt it and change it to where it only goes from 15 to 20th. But the problem is, again, if you're running it as a follow-up to one of those other campaigns, then you've already probably leveled up. But if you want to run this just as a tier 4 campaign that has nothing to do with Vecna, you could actually do that, and I think it's worth exploring, especially if you like the idea of a tier 4 campaign that takes place primarily around the Planescape setting. I think this is worth looking at. And the reason I'm going over that is because I think that's kind of hidden information that I discovered while looking at it. I mean, it's just because it's, again, volume 4 of a series. You're thinking, okay, this is something that's only relevant if I'm doing the rest of the campaign, but that's not the case whatsoever. You can run this one far easier than the other series as a just complete separate adventure, but it is definitely a high level adventure, and it's very good. I love it. I love the design teams, how they do, how they break it up between like hex crawl and overland travel, and which, I mean, there's really no overland travel if you're this high level, right? You're just kind of portaling around. There's a part where you're like on a hell train going through the abyssal outlands, and it's attacked by like angels. Like it just has cool cinematic, awesome moments, which is what I live for when playing D&D. And my players also really appreciate. It's got cool like NPCs and characters the players can either work with, or they can just fight as a boss battle. And the campaign does a great job of not requiring any particular things to happen. It's not perfect. I have some criticisms, which I mentioned in my review, but I really wanted to just highlight this adventure because it just came out, and I think it is very, very special and worth checking out if you are looking for a high-level campaign to run. That is Legacy of Vecna, available now on the DM's Guild. You can check out my review on my YouTube channel. All right, the final thing that we want to cover for this week in D&D, which I believe just hit yesterday, is information about SRD 5.2, the System Reference Document. I think they mentioned this last fall that they would have to basically do another one for the 2024 rules specifically, which I didn't realize, frankly. They said, I'm reading from the D&D Beyond news post here, with the release of the new core rulebooks, we're announcing the upcoming publication of System Reference Document 4.2. I keep wanting to say System Rules Document, by the way, and also known as SRD 5.2. This document will provide materials that creators can use to publish content compatible with the 2024 rule set. I don't know why it's taken this many months after that stuff started releasing before we got this. SRD 5.2 will release under the Creative Commons license on April 22nd. So it's not even coming out today. It's actually a week from now. So the SRD contains the base game rules for D&D. It's basically how people publish anything using the D&D rules. This is different, by the way, from publishing it on the DM's Guild, which specifically uses the IP of D&D. So if you publish on the DM's Guild, you can use, for example, Vecna and Waterdeep and the Sword Coast setting and all that kind of stuff. But to just use the D&D rule set and purchase and publish your own content, via Kickstarter or your own website or whatever else, or Drive-Thru RPG, that's when the SRD comes into play. SRD 5.2 includes foundational content from the 2024 core rules. You can find an updated and expanded library of referenceable content, such as rules, glossary, weapon mastery properties, and exploration mechanics. So just kind of making sure that all the new stuff is also going to be in the Creative Commons license. Which, of course, this all spawned out of the very, very disastrous OGL craziness that happened. I didn't remember now. It feels like it was a lifetime ago. I want to say it was it a year ago or 2 years ago from now? I know it was like the first early part of the year. But when they, I'm going to do it, but Wizards basically tried to bring down new rules about how the OGL was going to, the open game license was going to operate. And the community lost their collective shit, which they probably should have. And instead, Wizards not only completely backtracked and said, all right, we're going to put the actual system reference document into the Creative Commons license, which is a legally binding promise that essential parts of D&D will remain free to use, remix, and build upon forever. Thank you. Early 2023. So it's 2 years ago. I'm bad at dates, man. It's time is gotten real tricky these days. So the SRD just makes it so SRD transitioned their content for the 2014 rules, the 2024 rules. I mean, I'm glad we're finally getting this, because I do like the 2024 rules. I think that a lot of, not everybody, in fact, let me know if you're not wanting to convert to 2024 for various reasons. But I haven't played it yet, so I want to at least play the 2024 rules. That's what my next campaign will for sure be. And then based on that campaign and how it goes, then I can make a more informed decision. But what I don't want to do is just decide right off the bat, I don't want to do this just because I'm so used to the old one. I'm interested, at least from a on paper viewpoint, for me looking and reviewing the 2024 stuff, I was very positive about all the things that I saw, both from a player point of view and from a DM point of view, for the most part. Later publish a conversion guide to help creators update their content to the new rule set. More details will be released later for this. SRD will be regularly updated to incorporate the latest errata for the 2024 core rules. The first errata of the new core rules has just been released, which I do have a tab open for that. We can look at that in a second. I don't think any of this other stuff is like new information. The D&D Beyond rules the same as SRD 5.2. You can find overlap between the Beyond basic rules and SRD 5.2. Only SRD is being released under Creative Commons license. The basic rules cannot be used in content creation. With the release of SRD 5.2, we're replacing the free rules 2024 on D&D Beyond with the new D&D Beyond basic rules. This online resource tends to help players and Dungeon Masters learn how to play the game. Okay. So I don't know if the information there is going to change. It might just be a reorganization of how it appears. I haven't seen anything about if they're taking away any information. I don't think they would. So yeah, I think it's just kind of a cleanup of making sure that the new version has the same third-party rights as the 2014 version, which I admit I did not realize it needed a separate update for the new books to be in the Creative Commons license. So I guess we haven't seen anything. I don't know if this is different from the DM's Guild. So maybe they could have been doing this the whole time, at least for third-party creators that are not on the DM's Guild and licensing using the system reference document. I guess we haven't seen any usage of the 2024 stuff until starting, I guess, April 22nd is when this goes into effect. I plan on sticking with 5th. I've had enough with edition creep with Warhammer. Yeah. It is interesting that, everybody just has to get buffed over time, which is probably the right way to do it from a design standpoint. Anytime people get nerfed, they feel it very painfully, but If you buff everybody, then that's what starts the power creep, but it is what it is. For me, I think it's just going to hopefully breathe a little bit of fresh air into 5e. I've been playing 5e for a long time, and I'm interested in just tweaking. And it feels like a lot of the rules were kind of house rules we were using already, so this kind of helps clarify all that. So a lot of the changes, it just helps codify, I think, a lot of things we were already doing. I can't think of any specific things that I'm like, oh, I really don't like X or Y change. And when it comes to balance, I think the spells appear to be a little bit more balanced, like healing spells heal more. The difference between conjuration spells and summoning spells, all these things seem to make sense, again, on paper, but I will be very interested to actually sit down and play D&D 2024, and then my opinions may change from there. As a very final thing for this week in D&D, I did open a tab for the official 2024 core rules errata, which this one just hit this week. And this is basically patch notes for the player's handbook, which is always tricky because obviously most of us buy physical books, I think, still, right? Raise your hand if you bought a physical book, like, or do we just use D&D Beyond now? I like physical books. So it's a shame that if I give people the physical books or people purchase them, then they don't have access to this errata until future printings. But for my case, a lot of my players, for example, are going to be using Roll20 to make their characters, so they will be implementing on this. So this helps explain the fact why when I crack open my book, things might be a little different than what appears on like a D&D Beyond or a Roll20 or something, assuming they keep up with the errata, which hopefully they do. I think a lot of these are basically just cleaning up sentence structure and making it a little bit more clear on things. Obviously this is a different one. For the Goliath trait, you have advantage on any saving throw, is now you have advantage on any ability check. That's not just cleaning up, that's actually changing that ability. That's probably a nerf, I would think. Saving throw is better. That's actually a good question. I wonder, what would you rather have advantage on, a saving throw or an ability check? I'd probably rather do the saving throw, because that could save me from something bad, versus an ability check is like, oh, I didn't get to do a thing. Otherwise, there's some kind of cleanup of language. The biggest one appears to be the spells section. The way that higher level spell slots got nerfed for conjuring spells specifically. This is on D&D Beyond I'm looking at. So the conjure spells, let's see, is the conjure... Okay, so the conjure line, I think, is the ones where you're not summoning a creature. Instead, you're summoning like an effect. So like Conjure Mind Elementals is like a Spirit Guardians type effect. Instead of conjuring, like, and Conjure Woodland Beings is no longer like you're summoning a Dryad. It's like you're summoning a 10-foot emanation. Force of Wisdom saving throw, takes 5d8 force damage on a failed save. The new changes apparently nerfs how they scale. So now using a high level spell slot, they deal less damage. I don't know many people who have been able to play much 2024 by now, and certainly been able to use some of these very powerful abilities. A lot of these are very high level spells, by the way, 4th and 5th and 6th level. So I can't imagine you would use high level spell slots too often to do that. So it's interesting they were able to make those changes already. Okay, and just cleaning up the fact, like, polymorph, temporary hit points vanish if any remain when the spell ends. So just notes about temporary hit points when shape changing. So that appears to be the main changes here. But it is important to know about these things that come up, because there is going to be an odd discrepancy now. Before, it would have been, if we were all bringing our physical books, people may never know about these errata changes, right? Until somebody decides to look it online. But now that D&D is so integrated into the digital space, and a lot of people even play at the table using, like D&D Beyond on their tablets or whatever to look up all the information, this is going to be the new normal. So there is going to be discrepancies between what they see in the digital space versus what they see in the book because of these errata changes. And these are quite a few listed here, but it's important to look that stuff up. All right, folks, I think that's all the news this week. clean up on the Dominic's. First, I don't like the Divine Smite change because of the bonus action change. I don't mind it being a spell and therefore limit. Oh yeah, they did nerf Divine Smite. Yeah, it's a spell, therefore limits other spell use, and it does require a bonus action. Any more things like land hands, potion, other subclasses uses. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much, because I feel like certain classes in the 2014 rules had bonus action issues. In fact, famously, Chris's character, Rune Knight Fighter, in our last campaign, ran into a lot of bonus action juggling, where like he wanted to do all these different things, but he was limited by that bonus action. Whereas other classes, they hardly ever even use their bonus action. So I think in the new 2020, they tried to make it where every class had like more bonus action stuff to do, maybe. Books purchased can't be paywalled at a later date. Yeah. Saving throw would make sense for a race feature to do such a thing. Yeah, I'd agree. Saving throws are very important. Yeah. All right. That is going to do it for this week in D&D, our sophomore session. Thank you all for joining me. As always, big thank you to the patrons for helping to support this channel. Shout out to Platinum patrons: Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brandon, Genocider, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Olympia Spuds, Ward, Harold, Udemo, LC, Tom, the Dogs, Marcus, Dougie, Hugo, Shane, Chris, and Gold patrons: RPG, Papergram, Spitty Boy, and Yuma, Does the Lounge, Jerome, Nathan Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott Ruffus, Jerry Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support, and I will see all of you next week for another week in D&D.